Hello everyone. I have decided to teach the lesson plan on culture shock, which can be found in the Fantini text on pages 176 to 177. I think this is going to be a very fun and interesting exercise that's going to help prepare my EFL university students for their upcoming semesters abroad at an American university. I think that most of us have some sort of experience with culture shock, whether it be from our own travels abroad or from our students who may be suffering from it. So we know just how big of a deal it can actually be. Uh, I think that unfortunately there's a common misconception from people that culture shock isn't so serious and that it's just a quick shock to the senses that dissipates quickly over time. And I think that there are also a lot of people who may downplay the effects of culture shock because the extent of their experience with it was just from like say a quick 1 or 2 week vacation to some big city like Paris, and all they did was take in the tourist attractions. So I think that it's actually really important to note that that this may not be such a huge issue for some extroverted students and for students who don't plan on leaving their continent. For other students, especially those students who are introverted, and for those who are planning on, say, traveling halfway across the world and staying for an extended period of time, that this can be a very disturbing experience and that it can be an affront to all five of their senses and leave them feeling depressed, anxious, withdrawn, and in some extreme cases, even wanting to leave back to their home countries quicker than they had anticipated. And I think that this is an important reason why some form or fashion of this exercise should be implemented in any course that's preparing its students to study abroad. And so let's see how it goes. I think it's going to turn out well. And I think it's going to be a great starting point to helping to sensitize my students to new cultures and help them prepare for their fun trips to America. Hello, class. Today we are going to be learning about culture shock. Okay, let's see. Culture shock. SHOCK. All right, for those of you who aren't familiar with this term, its definition is a state of bewilderment and distress experienced by an individual who is suddenly exposed to a new, strange, or foreign social and cultural environment. All right, so when you guys get to America, you're going to be experiencing all these new different foods and sounds and people and customs, and they're all going to be coming at you at once, and it's going to be a little stressful. It's going to be a bit of a shock to your senses, and that's okay. It's perfectly normal. Everybody experiences this a little bit, at least a little bit, when they go travel abroad, and that's why it's great that we have this valuable class time to help prepare you for these moments when you get to America. Um, it's actually a pretty cool and interesting topic. It's one that I have quite a bit of experience with myself. When I was younger, I did a lot of traveling around Europe, and I can remember some instances of culture shock that really threw me for a loop. See, one example was when I was traveling to Finland with a Finnish buddy of mine. We went to a wedding in the countryside, and what do we do? What do all Finns do all the time? Of course, they go to saunas, and so we all went to a sauna, me and him, and we were completely naked along with a bunch of other Finnish people that I didn't know, and some of whom were senior citizens, and we all sat around in the sauna completely naked, slapping each other with wet birch branches. Uh, they do it to help increase the blood circulation, and I think that I may have actually been a little extra red during that sauna because I was blushing the entire time. And let's see, another example was when I was visiting an Irish buddy of mine on his dairy farm. And I remember one morning he woke me up at the crack of dawn when I had a full blown Guinness hangover and had me help him milk the cows and then bring them out to pasture. And I remember that it was freezing cold, and I just felt so terrible, but I did it anyway. And The mud was all muddy and everything, but we got through it, and I think I ended up having the best sleep of my entire life that night. All right, so now let's go over some phrases that are going to help you all when you experience some of these awkward social experiences when you get to America. Okay, so let's say, for example, someone comes up to you in class and says, "Hey, let's go play some flag football on the quad after class." And you're thinking to yourself, quad, flag football? What does that mean? And this is a good time for you to say something like, um, "I'm confused. Can you please help me understand this? Please repeat." Very good. And then this is when your friend explains, "Okay, so like flag football is sort of a non-violent way of playing American football. It doesn't have any tackling, and quad is like an open grassy area that's surrounded by university buildings where a lot of students like to go hang out and play some light sports." And then that's when you say, "Heck yeah, let's go. That sounds like fun, right?" All right, and say for another example, let's say you're going out to eat with some of your new American friends, and they serve you some really greasy fried chicken, and all the other food is just really fatty and it has a lot of salt and sugar in it, like a lot of American food, right? And you're just thinking to yourself, "Oh man, this is kind of disgusting. There's no way I can eat all this," right? And then this is a good time for you to say something like, "Please excuse me for not eating very much. I'm still getting used to the American cuisine." Please repeat. Very good. And let's say, for example, you're having a normal conversation with somebody and everything's going fine, and then you say something and they look at you like they're really surprised and maybe a little angry at you, and you have no idea why. Maybe you said something inappropriate or offensive. No big deal. I did it a few times myself when I was studying abroad in Germany. Uh, just as long as you say, "Hey, listen, please excuse me. I didn't mean to offend you. I'm still learning English and American customs." And then I'm sure after that they'll be like, "Oh, okay, that's fine. This would have been a better way of saying what you meant. This would have been more appropriate." And I think that as long as you explain to them that you didn't mean any offense and that you're trying to learn, that most Americans will be really nice and easygoing about it. Okay, so now I am going to have you all um, write down one experience that you can recall in which you experienced culture shock, or that you witnessed somebody else sort of having a hard time adjusting to um, cultural situation of some sort. All right, I'll give you guys about 5 minutes. Okay, everybody done? Now I'm going to ask you all to get into groups of two and tell each other your experience, and have them and ask them how they would have reacted to it and why. Okay, so let's go through one example. Gretchen, you wrote that when you were tutoring a student from the Middle East, that sometimes he would stand too close to you when he was talking to you, and then it made you feel uncomfortable. This is a great example, because in some countries it's perfectly normal to be talking with somebody like right up here, right? And in some countries and cultures it's not. I know it would be kind of weird for me. I wouldn't feel very comfortable with it. So let's see what your partner Sebastian had to say about it, how he would have reacted. Sebastian wrote that he would have politely said, "Hey, listen, I'm not trying to be rude, but can you please stand a few feet away from me," or just show him, so stand like this, right about here, when you speak to me, and it doesn't have anything to do with you. It's not personal. It's just a cultural thing. It's what I'm used to. And that would have been perfectly acceptable and appropriate. And if they don't accept it, then that's their problem. It's not yours because you did all that you could, right? And so those were a great example and a response, Gretchen and Sebastian. And that wraps up our lesson for today. Thank you all for your attention and your participation, and I will see you all tomorrow. All right, I think that went really well. All my students seemed to enjoy themselves, and they were all excited about sharing their own interesting experiences with culture shock. They all seemed genuinely enthusiastic about communicating with each other, and I could almost sense the effect of filters being brought down as the lesson progressed. But unfortunately, due to the limited amount of time that I was allotted for this lesson, I think that I was only able to cover the tip of the iceberg of this very important ESL topic. In future lesson plans, I would like to cover more terminology, and I would like to provide them with some written scenarios of uncomfortable social interactions they may experience when they get to America, and have them get into groups and to make a skit out of them and perform them in front of the class. I would also very much like to go into more detail about the 4 specific stages of culture shock, and to let them know that reverse culture shock can be just as bad, if not worse, than the culture shock that they first experienced when they left their home countries. This is a great opportunity for my students. They've worked really hard to get to this point in their academic careers, and I want to get it across to them that if they don't take this seriously, they're not going to get the most out of their times in America. I've actually seen quite a few international students who didn't seem to enjoy themselves when they were abroad. They were just really kind of quiet, and they stuck to themselves, and I am determined for this not to be the case with my students. So I am going to continually remind them throughout the course to stay mindful and to remember the coping techniques that I taught them when they get to America. All right, well, that concludes my video presentation. I hope you all enjoyed it, and I look forward to seeing everybody else's videos.